The honourable member for Kildonan St. Paul.
Mr. Speaker, this winter is likely to be as cold and punishing and as long as the last winter, and this is very bad news for Canadian families because we've heard that gas home heating costs are expected to increase 100%, and 6 out of 10 Canadian families heat their homes with natural gas. So that means there's going to be hundreds, if not thousands of dollars more on home heating bills this winter for Canadian families. And it's only going to be made worse by the Liberals, who are going to triple the carbon tax. So why are they so insistent on punishing Canadians for heating their homes, Mr. Speaker?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of the Environment.
Speaker, I want to thank my honourable colleague from Winnipeg and remind her that the parliamentary budget officer has weighed in many times. 8 out of 10 families will be better off. And the other thing the parliamentary budget officer says, Mr. Speaker, is that the tab for climate destruction in this country is $20 billion a year. You've heard me talk about Lytton. You've heard me talk about the floods in Manitoba. Mr. Speaker, we can't afford these climate disasters. The Conservatives are doing absolutely nothing about it.
Again, I want to remind the honourable members, I'm sure they don't want to be named, and especially like on my left ear, I don't know what it is, but I can hear the voices very strongly. And again, I don't want to have to look over and name the riding that they're from and embarrass them, their family, their ridings, and anyone who knows them. The honourable member for Kildonan St. Paul.
Mr. Speaker, these Liberals have spent over $100 billion on climate change, and their carbon tax has increased the cost of food, home heating, and gas. And things are getting worse than ever before. Inflation's at a 40-year high, and now we're finding out that Canada, with all this spending and all these taxes, we're ranked 58th out of 63 countries in the world for the Climate Change Performance Index by COP27. We're the bottom of the barrel on climate change, Mr. Speaker. They don't have a climate change plan. They have a tax plan. So when will they axe the carbon tax so that Canadian families can afford to live?
Hear, hear. The Honourable Minister of Immigration.
Speaker, I find it revealing that the preamble to the honourable member's question, she seemed to criticize us for making serious investments in climate change. It should come as no surprise, though, that they oppose our measure, because she knows very well that the policy we've advanced actually puts more money in the pockets of Canadian households. I'm not surprised that they're opposing it, because at every instance, they have opposed measures since 2015 that actually leave ordinary families better off. When we raise taxes on the wealthiest to give a tax break to the middle class, they voted against it. When we stopped sending childcare checks to millionaires to put more money in the pockets of 9 out of 10 Canadian families, they voted against it. And now when we're charging people for pollution and giving that money directly to families, they oppose it too.
The honourable member for Parry Sound, Muskoka.
Mr. Speaker, the Prime Minister broke his promise to Canadians. In 2017, he launched his national housing strategy, calling it, among other things, a life-changing plan to get Canadians into homes and to keep them there. The minister even recently gave housing bureaucrats $48 million in bonuses for a job well done. But we all know, Mr. Speaker, the housing crisis has gotten worse and worse and worse under this government. So, will the minister please explain to this House and to Canadians why he gave $48 million of bonuses to bureaucrats for a job not done?
The Honourable Minister for Housing.
Yet another example of playing ignorance when they know better, that we don't determine the compensation rates for an independent Crown corporation. But what I will speak to, if the member has the courage to talk to his leader, to stop being the biggest gatekeeper to supports for housing for Canadians. When we introduced legislation to deliver much-needed rental supports to Canadians, what did that side do? They opposed it. When we presented plans to invest in rapid housing solutions for the most vulnerable, they opposed it. That is their record, Mr. Speaker, and they can't get away from it.
Honourable member for Parry Sound, Muskoka.
Well, Mr. Speaker, yesterday the Auditor General laid the facts bare for all Canadians. Never, ever has a government spent so much to deliver so little. That's right. Canadians see the results. They see the tent cities growing all across this country. So can the minister please explain to this House and to every single Canadian that cannot find a home right now why you would give $48 million in bonuses to federal housing gatekeepers while more and more Canadians get left out in the cold?
The Honourable Minister.
The Honourable
member took that same level of advocacy to his leader, who has been the biggest gatekeeper in this House against supports for Canadian first-time home buyers, against supports for rapid housing initiatives in communities facing homelessness, against supports for 64 different community entities to reduce and prevent homelessness.
The Honourable Minister, maybe from the top so I can hear the whole thing this time. It's at a distance over here. I'm having a hard time.
To live up to their record, and when someone actually states their true record in this side of the House, they have a problem listening to it. But those are the facts. Whether it is first-time home buyers saving up to $40,000 in a tax-free savings account, they voted against it. When it is providing more supports to communities facing homelessness through the pandemic by preventing 62,000 people from entering homelessness and providing permanent solutions to 32,000 Canadians experiencing homelessness, they voted against it. The Rapid Housing Initiative has delivered 10,250 deeply affordable homes. They voted against that.
The Honourable Member for Avignon Métis Matapédia. Mr. Speaker, in the midst of COP27, the big winners have been announced. Unfortunately, I'm talking about the winners of the scramble for offshore oil exploration licenses off of Newfoundland. And the winners are ExxonMobil, BP, Equinor, and Qatar's state-owned company QPI. Encouraged by the federal abolition of environmental assessments, they have promised to invest no less than $238 million to find oil. The fact that they are funneling in $238 million, needless to say, they're counting on finding oil. So how many more Bay du Nords will the government allow them? The Honourable Minister.
Parliamentary Secretary.
I would like to clarify the tendering process does not allow production in the offshore sector. I would like to state that all targeted requests will be subject to the Environmental Assessment Act and will be part of our environment plan, including it is part of our commitments, including net zero emissions by 2050.